to the Morning Breath live stream. I'm your host, Jeremy Tennell, systems designer and coherence coach. This is week 2, day 10 of our 14-week journey entitled The Path of Personal Transformation. This week, we've been exploring recognition through the lens of self-awareness. Over the past several days, we've talked about honesty with the patterns in our lives, naming what feels unmanageable, the practice of inventory, and developing a gracious self-perspective. Today, we arrive at an important transition point in our journey. Once we see the patterns clearly and hold them with understanding and care, we gain the ability to choose how we respond. This is called agency. Agency emerges the moment awareness creates space between what happens and how we choose to respond to it. Agency is often misunderstood. It is commonly believed that agency means controlling everything in our lives. But agency isn't about control. It's about choosing our response within the ups and downs of our lives. Life will always bring you unexpected events and emotional triggers. Stress and conflict are never going away. Uncertainty is a part of the... Earlier this week, we talked about patterns. When we are unaware of our patterns, our reactions tend to feel automatic. Something happens, we react, and only afterwards do we realize what we actually did. But awareness changes that dynamic. When recognizing patterns, something subtle but powerful occurs. A small space in between stimulus and response. Inside that space lives choice, and choice is where agency begins. In systems thinking, behavior is often driven by reinforcing feedback loops. A loop repeats because the system continues responding in the same way it was designed. For example, stress, overwork, exhaustion, reduced clarity, more stress. Or criticism, defensiveness, conflict, more criticism. The loop continues because the response remains the same. In human beings, we call this a reactionary loop. Agency enters the system when we interrupt this loop. When the response changes, when the patterns shift, the system itself begins to reorganize. Agency is not something we achieve once. It's something we practice daily. Each moment of awareness gives us an opportunity to ask, should I respond in this situation? What response would best serve me now? Coherent in the midst of this activation. Sometimes the change is small. We pause before reacting. We ask a question instead of assuming. We take a breath before responding. Small changes in behavior can create large shifts over time because agency is a form of power that is maximized through practice. Greatest expressions of agency is the pause. The pause allows us to notice, what am I feeling? What pattern is beginning to activate in this moment? What response might be helpful? The pause may only last a few seconds, but those few seconds can completely change the outcome of a situation. Later today, I want you to take a moment with your journals and reflect on this question. Where in my life would I most benefit from creating a pause before reacting? Try and see those patterns. And then go deeper by asking, what response might I choose if I approach the situation with awareness instead of habit? The goal is not perfection. The goal is simply becoming more intentional with our response. Let's go ahead and get into our breath work for today, 5 minutes, which sets our trajectory for resilience and coherence. And today, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be hooking up an inner balance device, which is a device that is designed and made by the HeartMath Institute. And the inner balance device measures what's called HRV, heart rate variability. It hooks up to my ear where it is able to get a viable heartbeat. And I will just stick this other one in my pocket. And this is what the screen for the inner balance device looks like. That is a breath wheel that you see. And that breath wheel will move in and out as I am breathing. And it will measure in between my heartbeats the coherent pattern, the signal that is coming from the heart to my brain. And it will measure whether or not my heart and brain are in coherence through a measurement of heart rate variability. In other words, the variability that occurs in between the heartbeat. One of the things that you'll see on the screen, and I'll show you, is at first my heart rate variability might be a bit erratic. but eventually it should smooth into a coherent cosine. And I am engaging the intelligent cognitive centers of both my heart and my brain in a coherent fashion.